Today we are going to see how long it takes a team of the NHL cover athletes to win a Stanley Cup. That's right, I have a team full of the NHL cover athletes. We are the El Paso cover athletes. What a great name, I know. Here are our home jerseys, not looking too bad if I do say so myself, and our away jerseys. We are going to be playing out of El Paso, Texas, but we are the El Paso cover athletes. Now it's time to check out the roster. We are going to be taking out the Arizona Coyotes for obvious reasons, and we will be putting in the EA Sports cover athletes. Well, technically El Paso cover athletes, but you get my point. If you're new here and you enjoy videos like this, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and make sure you turn notifications on so you don't miss a single upload. First up, we have Ovechkin. He was on the cover for NHL 07 and NHL 21. We have McDavid. He was on the cover for NHL 18. Patrick Kane was on the NHL 10 cover. He was supposed to be on NHL 16, but yeah, something went wrong. Austin Matthews was obviously on the cover of NHL 20 and NHL 22. Mario Lemieux was on the cover of NHL 2002. That is a long ass time ago. Moving on to the next year, Jerome McGinley was on the cover of NHL 2003. Marcus Naslund was on the cover of NHL 2005. Eric Lindros was on the cover of NHL 99. Yes, they put Eric Lindros there instead of Wayne Gretzky. That was the perfect opportunity, EA Sports. Stammer was on the cover of NHL 12. Claude Giroux was on the cover of NHL 13. An absolute goated game. Jonathan Toews was on 2 NHL covers, NHL 11 and NHL 16. He was supposed to be paired with Patrick Kane on the NHL 16 cover, but yeah, we know what happened there. And rounding out our forward core, Vladimir Tarasenko, who was on the cover of NHL 17. Yes, he was actually on the cover of an NHL game. That's how highly everybody thought of him back then. Moving on to our defensemen, we only had one true defenseman who was on the cover of an NHL game, and that was Chris Pronger in NHL 2000. So the rest of our D core are actually just forwards playing D, playing with the D, playing D, pause. We have Peter Forsberg. He was on the cover for NHL 98. We have Rob Brindamore, who was actually on the cover of NHL PA Hockey, so we slotted him in there. We have Bergeron, who was on the NHL 15 cover, literally the worst NHL game of all time. That game was absolute dog shit. We have pretty boy Trevor Zegras, who was on the NHL 23 cover. And finally, we have Eric Stahl, who was on the NHL 08 cover. Eric Stahl was a dog back in the day. For goalies, we have Marty Brodeur, who was on the NHL 14 cover, the greatest NHL game ever. And we have Mr. Mike, who was on the NHL PA Hockey cover, along with Rob Brindamore. This is the El Paso NHL cover athletes. Let's see if we can win a Stanley Cup. I mean, we should. We have a lot of great players here. Our captain is Connor McPowerplay, with our assistant being Mario Lemieux and the head of NHL safety, Chris Pronger. We would end up having one of the greatest regular seasons of all time. 60 wins, 16 losses, 6 overtime losses, 666. Oh my god, we're gonna die. We would obviously finish first in the entire NHL. Matthews would lead our team in points with 108, followed by Connor McDavid, Patrick Kane, and Mario Lemieux. Matthews would also lead us in goals with 44, followed by McDavid, Ovechkin, and Kane. We do have a lot of snipers on this team. Peter Forsberg would have the most penalty minutes on our team. Very useless stat, but I wanted everybody to know. Martin Brodeur played 73 games and had 53 wins, an NHL record, and he had 5 shutouts and very good stats. What a year for Marty Brodeur. Edmonton Oilers' Connor McDavid would lead the entire NHL in points with 113, followed by Mikko Rantanen and the GOAT, Nathan MacKinnon. Brodeur would have the most wins, obviously he had the most in NHL history. Ilya Sorokin would have the most shutouts in the entire NHL with 7. And we are going to be playing the Minnesota Wild in round number 1. We obviously know we're going to beat them. They cannot get out of the first round. Cover athletes in 5, baby. I swear the Colorado Avalanche are the greatest simulation team of all time. They would dominate us in the second round in 5 games, and the Edmonton Oilers would go on to win the Stanley Cup, beating Philly in 7 games. Ovechkin would have the most points in the playoffs, followed by Patrick Kane, Steven Stamkos, and Eric Lindros. Martin Brodeur did not have a great playoff run either. Look at those stats, at .364 goals against average. Mikko Rantanen would take home the Ted Lindsay, the Maurice Richard, and the Hart Trophy. The Norris would go to Cale Makar. The Conn Smythe would go to Connor McDavid. The Vezina to Marty Brodeur, it was not even close. And the Selke to Alexander Barkov. We would have a slightly worse second season, but overall still pretty good. 53 wins, 23 losses, and 6 overtime losses. Our team was led by Patrick Kane, Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, Alex Ovechkin. They all had over 80 points. Kane and McDavid would lead our team in goals also, followed by Austin Matthews, Alex Ovechkin, and Mario Lemieux. Our only defenseman, Chris Pronger, had 7 goals and 22 points in 82 games, but we do not have him on our team to score points. Marty Brodeur would have 45 wins and 3 shutouts, and not very good stats. Not even a 900 save percentage. Tage Thompson would have the most points in the entire NHL, followed by Connor McDavid, Patrick Kane, Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, and the GOAT, Nathan MacKinnon. I've never seen Tage Thompson lead the entire NHL in points. I'm honestly shocked. Marty Brodeur would tie with John Gibson for the most wins in the entire NHL, but Freddie Anderson would have the most shutouts with 8. And we are going to be playing the Vancouver Canucks in round number 1. That is going to be very easy. Vancouver is an absolute garbage can of a franchise, so I can see a win in 5 or 6 for the good guys. Well, I definitely look like an idiot now. Somehow we lost to the god-awful franchise that is the Vancouver Canucks in 6 games, and the Washington Capitals would go on to win the Stanley Cup, beating Calgary in 7 games. Ovechkin, yet again, was the only player that was point per game on our team, but I mean, we are not getting offense in the postseason at all. Powerplay and hairline need to do something more in the postseason. Yeah, Martin Brodeur just got hung out to dry. He had 1 shutout though. Tage Thompson is the greatest player of all time. Ovi would take home the Maurice Richard. The Norris again to Cale Makar. The Conn Smythe would go to Nicholas Backstrom. Darcy Kemper would win the Vezina. And the Selke to Alexander Barkov yet again. After 2 very disappointing postseason runs, we are going to be putting Mario Lemieux on the first line with Connor McDavid and Alex Ovechkin. The idea is that we're going to give McDavid 2 absolutely goated snipers in Lemieux and Ovechkin. Meanwhile, we have Kane, Matthews, and Iginla on the second line. For our 3rd season, we would yet again finish first in the Central. We would have a 50, 25, and 7 record. McDavid would have a big year for us, 45 goals and 114 points, followed by Patrick Kane, Austin Matthews, and Mario Lemieux. Mario finally stepped up, 33 goals, 86 points, a very good year for him. Marty Brodeur had 44 wins and 5 shutouts. How do you have 5 shutouts but not even a 900 save percentage? That means you were very good in 5 games, but every other game you were absolutely terrible. Our McDavid would lead the entire NHL in points, followed by the GOAT Nathan MacKinnon, Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, and Kaprizov. Alex Ovechkin would have 61 goals and 99 points, followed by McKinnon's 58, Matthews, Kucherov, Rantanen, and McDavid. So our McDavid tied the Edmonton Oilers McDavid in goals, but our McDavid had more points. Let's go, baby. Martin Brodeur would have the 3rd most wins by any goaltender, and we are going to be playing the Dallas Stars in round number 1. Do not let Joe Pavelski score 4 goals. Yet again, we would lose to Colorado in the 2nd round, this time in 7 games, and the Carolina Hurricanes would go on to win the Stanley Cup, beating Vegas in 6 games. I mean, our big guns would step up: Lemieux, Ovechkin, and McDavid. Connor McDavid had 10 goals in 11 games. Somehow we just could not get it done, even with our big guys scoring 19 points in 11 games. Maybe Marty Brodeur is our problem. He can't get a 9 save percentage, and his goals against average is terrible. Nathan MacKinnon would take home the Ted Lindsay and the Hart Trophy. The Norris again to Cale Makar. The Conn Smythe would go to your mom's Aho, Sebastian Aho. Jacob Markstrom would actually take home the Vezina. And the Selke yet again to Alexander Barkov. We would yet again finish first in the Central, this time with a 57, 22, and 3 record. Yet again, we finished first in the entire NHL. McDavid would have a very big year, 41 goals, 115 points, followed by Patrick Kane, Austin Matthews, Alex Ovechkin, Mario Lemieux. We would end up having 3 41 goal scorers in Alex Ovechkin, Connor McDavid, and Austin Matthews. I guess we score a lot of goals. Martin Brodeur would have 47 wins and 2 shutouts and a 9 save percentage. Finally, he hit that mark. The usual players at the top of the league standings for the NHL. Ovechkin would yet again score 61 goals, followed by Patrick Kane, Connor McDavid, Mikko Rantanen, and Nikita Kucherov. Brodeur would have the most wins in the entire NHL, but Ville Husso would have the most shutouts with 6. And we are going to be playing the Vegas Golden Knights in round number 1. And just like that, the El Paso Cover Athletes are in the Stanley Cup final against the Carolina Hurricanes. Can we take home Lord Stanley? Somehow we would choke a 3-1 series lead to the Carolina Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup final. I honestly do not know what to say. We just absolutely flat out choked. Patrick Kane would have a very good playoff run. 8 goals, 30 points, followed by Steven Stamkos, Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, and Eric Lindros. We would have 7 20-point scorers in the playoffs, but somehow we still didn't win the Stanley Cup. Come on, El Paso, what are we doing here? Marty Brodeur had 1 shutout and not very good stats overall. 15-8, 900 save percentage, 3 goals against average, not very good overall. Connor McDavid would take home the Ted Lindsay and the Art Ross. Adam Fox would take home the Norris. Natchez would take home the Conn Smythe. Georgiev would take home the Vezina. And the Selke yet again to Alexander Barkov. The cover athletes would end up finishing 52, 23, and 7, which was good enough for first in the Central and second in the entire NHL, only behind the Tampa Bay Lightning. McDavid would have a great year yet again, 43 goals, 112 points, followed by Patrick Kane, Austin Matthews, Alex Ovechkin, and Jerome McGinley. We would have 2 43 goal scorers in Connor McDavid and Alex Ovechkin. Marty Brodeur would have 42 wins and 1 shutout. And the Oilers' Connor McDavid would score 51 goals and 124 points. Then followed by Leon Draisaitl, our Connor McDavid, Mark Scheifele, and Jack Eichel. Brodeur would tie for the most wins by any goaltender with Andrei Vasilevsky. And we are going to be playing the Winnipeg Jets in round number 1. Somehow the Winnipeg Jets would sweep us in round number 1. That is very embarrassing. And the Tampa Bay Lightning would would go on to win the Stanley Cup, beating Vegas in 5 games. Connor McDavid is Connor McDavid. Dahlin would take home the Norris. Stammer would take home the Conn Smythe. The Vezina to Freddie Anderson. And the Selke to Sidney Crosby. Very impressive. We would yet again have an amazing regular season, but we all know how that goes. Not good. We would have a 58-18-6 record, which was good enough for first in the Central in the entire NHL. The same 5 players basically lead our team every single year. We have McDavid, Kane, Ovechkin, Matthews, and Lemieux. With McDavid having the best season with 42 goals and 116 points, we would end up having 4 40-goal scorers in Kane, Ovechkin, McDavid, and Matthews. That's got to be some type of record. Marty Brodeur would have 46 wins and 5 shutouts and finally hit a 9 save percentage. It's about time, buddy. The greatest player of all time would lead the entire NHL in points with 120, followed by Connor McDavid, our Connor McDavid, Mikko Rantanen, Steven Stamkos, and Mark Scheifele. Patrick Kane, not our Patrick Kane, but New York Rangers Patrick Kane, would have the most goals by any player, followed by McKinnon, Matthews, Kucherov, and Marchand. Marty Brodeur would have the most wins by any goaltender in the entire NHL with 46, and he would tie for the most shutouts in the entire NHL with 5. And we are going to be playing the Minnesota Wild in round number 1, and we have a rematch in the Stanley Cup final. We have the El Paso Cover Athletes versus the Carolina Hurricanes. We would absolutely dominate the Western Conference, only losing 1 game in the process. And just like that, the El Paso Cover Athletes are your Stanley Cup champions. We have finally captured that Stanley Cup we just could not get, and we are finally Stanley Cup champions. Connor McDavid is your Conn Smythe winner. There should be no surprise here. And here he comes, Captain Connor McDavid, coming to lift the Stanley Cup with the El Paso Cover Athletes, and we are now finally Stanley Cup champions. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Turn notifications on so you don't miss a single upload. And remember, don't be silly. Wrap your willy.